Hey, everybody. On today's show, we are going to talk about a topic that I feel strongly about, something that is near and dear to my heart. It's something that I've seen more and more over the last few years, and that is the problem that we're having in this country with debt for senior citizens. I am seeing more and more people that are in their late 60s, early 70s that are coming into the office and they're struggling with debt. So we're going to take a look at that issue today. We're going to start out, we're going to look at some of the reasons why more and more seniors are struggling with debt later in their lives. We're going to then look at a case study of one of my current clients that I'm working with now, take a look at their situation, kind of break that down a little bit. Then we're going to offer some tips and suggestions to seniors who are struggling with debt and maybe provide them with some information that will help them along the way. And lastly, if you think that this show has nothing to do with you because you're not a senior, maybe you're a millennial or you're a Generation Xer like myself, I'm going to tell you that you should continue to listen to the show because at the end, I'm also going to have some tips for you so that you do not find yourself in this situation when you get to retirement age and you become a senior. So let's get to the show. Let's cue the music.
Welcome to the Fresh Start for Life podcast, the show that will help you get out of debt and start living the financial life of your dreams. Now, here's your host, Don Golden.
Hello and welcome to episode 4. Today, we're going to be talking about senior citizens and the increase in debt that I see for seniors. This is something that is very near and dear to my heart. My mother is getting older. She is a baby boomer. My father-in-law is in the same situation. He's in his 70s. My mom's in her 70s. Senior citizens just have a special place in my heart, as I'm sure they do for you as well. But over the last 5 to 10 years, I've noticed more and more senior citizens coming into my office for bankruptcy consultations. This is something that we didn't see as much 10, 20 years ago when I first started. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And today we're going to go over and break those down a little bit, talk a little bit more about why I think it is that seniors are finding themselves in debt later in life. So let's jump right into that. One reason is there's currently 76 million baby boomers in this country. Now, what is a baby boomer? Baby boomer is somebody that was born between 1946 and 1964. I don't know how they come up with these years or how they determine it, but this, according to my research, is indicative of the years that if you were born within those years, you are considered a baby boomer. If you're a baby boomer, you are currently aged 55 to 73, maybe 54, depending on what month you were born in, but we'll just say 55 to 73, okay? So over the next 10 years, obviously, more and more baby boomers will be turning 65. 65 used to be the traditional age of retirement. It's starting to change a little bit. It's getting later and later. I think Social Security, in order to qualify for Social Security, it's around 67 now, depending on what year you were born. But people are definitely working longer. But here's the problem. As more and more baby boomers reach retirement age, they are going to find themselves in a problem. And the problem is going to be that they're not going to be able to retire because they're not going to be able to afford to. So reason number one that I think we're seeing more and more senior citizens coming in for bankruptcy consultations is more and more people are becoming senior citizens. The population of that age group is definitely growing rapidly. Issue number 2, medical expenses. Medical expenses increase as people get older. I think that's kind of intuitive. But there was a recent study back in 2016 that showed that people 55 and over represent 29% of the population, but account for 56% of all medical spending. That's a pretty big disparity. 29% of the population, 56% of the overall medical spending. The big problem here for seniors isn't just the amount their medical expenses cost. It's that they may have insurance and Medicare, but those things don't cover everything. Elderly people need to pay premiums for their Medicare and insurances. They need to pay deductibles and co-insurance all out of pocket. This is something that needs to come out of their monthly budget. And when you're living on a fixed income, this is very difficult. The third big issue that I see is that people's mindset about debt has just changed over the years. In the past, by the time people reached the age of 65 or normal retirement age, they had paid off most of their debt, paid off their mortgages, they hadn't have credit card debt, they certainly didn't have student loans. But these things have changed. According to a study by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, between 2003 and 2015, per capita debt increased by 48% for people 65 years and older. That's a pretty big jump. Now, let's break that down a little bit. Mortgage debt went up by 47%. Auto loans went up by 29%. And here's the crazy one to me. Student loan debt went up 886%. So the numbers sort of suggest that this baby boomer generation are doing things a little differently than their parents did. They're carrying debt for longer periods of their life. They rely on debt more in their later years than their parents did. In order to make this even a little bit more real for you, I want to give you what I would consider to be a case study. I want to examine the facts of a case that I recently encountered. I met with a couple in my office recently that kind of fit this mold and this criteria for the issue that we're talking about today. This is a married couple. They are in their 70s. They were hardworking people. They saved for their future. They had money in retirement. In fact, they had about $750,000 in their retirement account. Plus, they had Social Security and a small pension that they were living on. But they both had medical issues. And these medical issues cost them thousands and thousands of dollars out of pocket. In fact, one of them spent a lot of time in the hospital, and the costs of that were pretty astronomical. Even with the Medicare, his share was a lot of money. They also had lost thousands and thousands of dollars, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars actually, when the financial markets crashed during the economic crisis back in 2008, 2009, 2010 time period. They lost a lot of money in their retirement accounts during that time period. So they were basically hit with what I would consider to be a double whammy. They had really high medical expenses, and they lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in their retirement accounts because of the stock market downturn. And they just haven't been able to make that money back over this time period yet. So they turned to credit cards to help make ends meet. Their credit card debts got kind of high, so they decided to consolidate those down, get a personal loan to consolidate those credit cards. But the problem was they still had to take money out of their retirement account to help pay for their personal loan, their consolidation loan, but they still didn't quite have enough money to pay for all their medical bills and their prescriptions and their co-pays and all that stuff. So they did the only thing that they knew what they could do, which is they started using their credit cards again. So now they have a personal loan and they have credit cards again. This is something that is very common. A lot of people think it's a good idea to take out a consolidation loan, but the problem is that they keep the credit cards that they paid off. With those credit cards sitting around, it's very easy to start using them again when the situation seems to arise that you think you need to. So it's not always the best idea to consolidate debt. Sometimes it is, but you actually have to have a lot of discipline and not use those cards again. And unfortunately, these folks found themselves in a place where they felt like they had no choice. In order to keep up with their out-of-pocket medical expenses, they felt like they had to start using these credit cards again. So at this point in the story, they have a personal loan that they use to consolidate their credit cards. They have they've gone back into credit card debt to help pay for the medical expenses. They still have ongoing medical expenses that cost them out of pocket each month, prescriptions and co-pays and co-insurance. And they're still paying medical insurance premiums. So they're struggling. They're struggling, and they are continuing to take money out of their retirement account to supplement their retirement income from Social Security and the small pension. They have now realized that they're definitely going to outlive their money if something doesn't change. Their retirement savings is dwindled down to next to nothing now. They started with $750,000, and they're definitely below $100,000 now. And they know that this is not going to last them the rest of their lives if they continue to do what they're doing. So that is the case study I want us to take a look at. Now, when you talk to advisors and professionals, and I did a little research on this, on what's out there on the internet, there's a lot of recommendations for folks that are in this situation. One suggestion that they all seem to have is delay retirement and keep working. Now, that's a really good option if you're a baby boomer that's a younger baby boomer. Maybe you're 55, 60 years old, and you definitely have some years to continue to work. But the folks like my clients, their medical conditions just don't allow them to work. So even if they wanted to go back to work, or in this case, they'd already retired, but let's say they wanted to go back to work, they just can't do it because their health doesn't allow for it. And even if you are able to get a job, it's often going to be a low-paying job like a Walmart greeter. Now, I'm not trying to put that position down. Those positions just don't pay very well. Those are jobs that people that are in their late 60s and early 70s can a lot of times physically do, but they don't pay very well. It's very hard for somebody that's been retired to go back to work and make the same level of income that they did when they retired. So delaying retirement is an option for younger people that are starting to get, maybe you just hit retirement age. But once you've hit retirement age and you've already retired, going back to work is a very difficult option. And it may not work for somebody that's struggling with debt later in their life. Another option is you can get some help from family to pay down your debt. Now, most baby boomers that I know are very proud people. They certainly don't want to ask their children or family members to help them pay their debt. They are definitely proud people that struggle when it comes time to ask for help. So they're slow. I don't even know if many people would do this, ask their children to help them pay their debt. But let's say for the sake of argument that somebody does decide that that's an option and that they do talk to their children about helping them pay some of the debt down. That can work definitely sometimes. But a lot of families that are at that age have children that are having children of their own, and they're living paycheck to paycheck themselves. So a lot of times, seniors just don't have family members that are in a position to help them financially because their children are also struggling financially. So the next option is maybe they can do a debt consolidation. Well, that's something that I frequently see as advice on the internet, that seniors should look at debt consolidation. Now, we already looked at this for my client. My client tried to do a debt consolidation and it just didn't help them. They had a payment for the consolidation credit card loan that they took out, and that was a lot of money that they were paying out each month. That didn't leave them with enough money to cover their out-of-pocket medical expenses, so they had to dip into the credit card debt again. So I don't necessarily think that somebody that's on a fixed income and they can't make more money, I don't think debt consolidation is a great way to go. Dave Ramsey says you can't borrow your way out of debt. It's just not possible to borrow your way out of debt. Even if you're trying to reduce interest rates and things like that, it just doesn't work. You've got to change something else. You've either got to increase your income so that you can pay more money towards the debt, or you've got to find another way to eliminate it. And that brings me to the fourth option, and this is the option I actually did recommend for my clients, and that's bankruptcy. Now, I know that people in this baby boomer generation, like I said, they're proud. And the last thing in the world they want to do is file bankruptcy. They never dreamt that they would have to consider filing bankruptcy because they'd always handled their money wisely. They did what they were supposed to do. They worked hard. They saved. They put money away for their retirement. But things happened to them. Things happened to them medically, and things happened to them with the stock market that just took a huge chunk of their savings and made it disappear. So sometimes bankruptcy is the best option. In this case, bankruptcy was the best option because now they don't have to continue to take money out of their retirement every single month to pay down debt. They can live off what they're making each month from Social Security and their small pension and just take a small amount of money out of their 401k each month to help offset some additional expenses. But they know that by getting rid of the debt, they will not outlive their money anymore. So this whole show, the Fresh Start for Life podcast, is about figuring out ways to help people get out of debt and live the financial life of their dreams. So for a senior citizen, what is the financial life of their dreams? Well, I'm not a senior citizen yet, so I really can't answer that question. But if I were in their shoes, the one thing that I would want is security. I would want to feel secure that the amount of money that I've set aside will be enough to last me the rest of my life. Although that may not sound grand, that may not sound fancy to somebody that, really wants a Mercedes and a mansion, things like that. That security later in life to know that your money will last you the rest of your life, I think that sounds pretty good. And that very well could be, the dream financial life for a senior citizen. I know what you may be thinking right now. You may be thinking, hey, Don, you recommended bankruptcy for them, but you said they still had money in their retirement account. Won't they lose that money? And now, before I answer that question, I'm going to say that I don't think I'm supposed to give legal advice on this show. In fact, things that I say on this show, although I am a lawyer, shouldn't be taken as legal advice. And if you have questions like this, you probably should direct it to an attorney in your area. But I'm going to answer that question by telling you that in Florida and in most states, retirement money is exempt from creditors, meaning that if you were to file bankruptcy, you get to keep the remaining money that you have in retirement. So in this case, my clients would be able to discharge their credit cards, their personal loan, and keep the money that they have left in their retirement account to help continue to support them for the rest of their life. So that's why, in a lot of circumstances, people that are older, they're on fixed income, bankruptcy is their best option, even though it's very difficult for them to wrap their heads around the idea of doing it. It absolutely breaks my heart to meet with people that have run through all of their savings, all of their retirement savings, paying debt. This has happened so many times in my career. And when I tell them that they're going to be able to file bankruptcy and keep their retirement money that they have remaining, or that they could have filed bankruptcy and kept the retirement money that they had, they always say the same thing. Man, I should have done this sooner. I wish I met you sooner. So now let's talk about the tips I have for the younger baby boomers, the Generation X people like myself and millennials. What can we do? So the first thing I want to say is if you have a parent or a family member that you're close to that you think, they're a senior citizen, you think they may be struggling with debt, I want you to have a conversation with them. Let's have conversations with our parents and our family. Don't be ashamed to bring it up. I know that they may not want to talk about it, but let's try to have honest conversations with our elderly parents about debt. Let's make sure that they're in a good place financially and that they're not struggling. And if they are struggling, let's talk to them about it and try to help them figure out what's best for them. It may be not, you may not be in a position to help them pay the debt, and that's okay. We don't, you're not expected to do that. But let's be there for our parents to help guide them through situations that they may not fully understand. It may be hard for them to make the right decisions when they're struggling financially. The second thing I want to recommend is, we need to be thinking about our retirements now. No matter how old you are, you're going to probably need more money than you think when you retire. So if you haven't started, get started now. Don't put it off any longer and save as much as you can. Develop a budget, stick to the budget, and put whatever you can into savings, into retirement, so that you don't find yourself in this position. You want to be secure and knowing that when you retire, your money's going to last you the rest of your life. And most importantly, get out of debt. Don't delay paying off your debt. Pay off your debt as soon as you can. Don't keep buying new houses. Don't keep upgrading to the biggest and best car. Pay off your car. Pay off your mortgage. Pay off your credit card debt so that when you reach retirement age, your money is going to the things that you need: food, shelter, utilities. There's this concept, it's called delayed gratification. And Dave Ramsey has a saying. I know I quote Dave Ramsey a lot, but you know what? He's a knowledgeable guy on personal finance, and he's somebody that I look up to. But he says, live like no one else, so later you can live like nobody else. What does that mean? It means, you may be a little bit frugal when you're younger, and people may look at you a little bit funny because you're not driving a BMW or you're not driving a Mercedes. But guess what? You don't have a car payment either. Being able to retire with dignity and security, knowing that your money will last you the rest of your life, is worth way more than the status of a BMW or Mercedes. So let's summarize my advice for Generation Xers, late baby boomers, and millennials. Advice number one, let's talk to our parents, help guide them through issues they may be having with debt. Suggestion number two, you're going to need more money than you think to retire, so let's get going on that right now. Let's save as much as we can. In order to do that, we need you to get on a budget. We need you to stick to it. And most importantly, get all of that debt paid off and taken care of before retirement. So one of the things that we did talk about today, in addition to all this other information, is that we talked a little bit about bankruptcy. And as you may or may not know, I am a bankruptcy lawyer. That is what I do as a day job. That's how I pay my bills. And I've actually written a book on bankruptcy. It's called Bankruptcy in Florida, Your Freedom, Your Future. And I really appreciate you guys all listening to the show today. You may have some questions about bankruptcy. And so if you do, I'd like to offer you a free copy of this book. All you got to do is go to freebkbook.com and you can request a copy of this book. We will make sure that you get a copy of the book sent to you if you're in Florida. If you're not in Florida, go ahead and go to freebkbook.com anyway. Put in your information because we may have an attorney that we've partnered with in your area, and we may be able to get you a copy of their book for free. And if we haven't partnered with an attorney in your area, we will at least have a free bankruptcy report that we'll be able to provide to you. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Please leave us a review. Those reviews help so much in the rankings and everything. So if you could leave me a review, I would really appreciate it. Hopefully, we provided some good information for you today, and it helps you in your journey to getting out of debt and start living the financial life of your dreams. Talk to you all in the next episode.